Hey there friends! Today I am making Perogies, or in German we would call them Wranica, and I'm also going to make some Schmolfat or cream gravy. I quit filming for a while during this because I got so frustrated and I was thinking I was just going to scrap the whole thing, but then I thought, you know what, maybe it would be encouraging for somebody out there to see that things don't always turn out all the time, and I get frustrated too, and sometimes, to just keep pressing on is what is needed, or to go with your gut and do what you think is right for a recipe, and that's what happened here. So I hope you're encouraged, and I'm just gonna keep going here. I have put the few ingredients for the dough that are needed into the bowl, and I'm just gonna get it mixed up and then I'll start rolling it out. The recipe did say it was going to make a soft dough, and it made a very soft dough, but I only make pierogies about every 3 years or something like that. I don't know why. It's just not something I make very often. And maybe I should specify, I don't make cottage cheese or blueberry pierogies very often, because most of the time I just buy the potato cheddar ones from the store. They're super cheap, and yeah, like I think a bag is $4 for about 60 to 70 pierogies, which does us easily for 2 meals with leftovers. And so usually when I make pierogies, that's what we're eating, but these cottage cheese and blueberry ones are a treat, so I make them myself. So I know it doesn't look like the dough is too sticky here, but as you keep watching, you'll see it got so sticky that I got totally frustrated and just ended up pulling it all up off the island, smushing it all back together into a ball and trying all over again. The first couple pierogies I am just folding or sealing by hand, and then I'm going to actually go get my pierogi cutter, pierogi press, whatever you want to call it, and then I'm going to use that thing. I have also used an empanada press in the past, which works as well. It's the same idea as the pierogi press, it's just quite a bit larger. Like if you imagine a pierogi the size of a pizza pop versus a pierogi like what I'm making here. Now, another thing that went wrong is that because it had been quite a while since I had made pierogies last, I thought I remembered being frustrated with buying dry cottage cheese only to have to add all kinds of stuff into the cottage cheese mixture, and thinking, well, now it's just as runny as if I just bought the regular cottage cheese. No, that is definitely not the case. It was still super runny, and so I ended up draining all the liquid off of the regular cottage cheese. So definitely, if you want to do this, I would recommend buying the dry cottage cheese. Now, my egg that I had dumped into my cottage cheese mixture here had a bit of a blood spot, so I just scooped that out. I don't think it would be unsafe to eat or anything. It just doesn't look appetizing. So here we go. Here's the first pierogi that I'm sealing by hand, and the dough is still quite sticky there around the edges wherever there isn't flour on there. And I debated lifting it all up right then and there, but I thought, no, maybe it was just the one and I'll just keep going. And I really should make notes for myself. If I'm not going to get into a rhythm of making these more often, I need to make notes for myself so I remember from one time to the next. It probably would have been a lot easier as well if I had cut the circles quite a bit larger than my press rather than exactly the right size, because then if the dough wanted to shrink a little bit, or if I needed a little extra dough to go over that pocket of cottage cheese, it would have been there. Once I had the press, it definitely did go a lot faster. I'm by no means a pro at this. I know I've heard of older Mennonite women who can whip up an entire batch of these, and a big batch, in like half an hour. That is totally not me. My hat goes off to those women. But I'm just gonna keep going here because we do really like cottage cheese pierogies. We like the potato cheddar pierogies, but these, as I said, are a big treat. Now, even though I had strained all the liquid out of the regular cottage cheese that I had bought, these were still quite moist, and so that's why I'm pressing them closed over top of the cottage cheese mixture. That way, if anything drips out, then it drips into there, and that pierogi totally burst open. One of my problems was that I rolled the dough out too thin. I would guess I rolled it to 1/8 of an inch or thinner, and that was a mistake. There were a couple pierogies that you'll see later on that were breaking open, and by the time I finished making all of the pierogies, a lot of the earlier or first pierogies had leaked moisture through the dough. That's how thin I had rolled it. So that was another mistake, and I was so incredibly frustrated. So here is where I just gave up. I was so annoyed. So that's why there's a big chunk there that's cut out. I added quite a bit more flour to the dough because I thought it had looked far too soft, and then things did go a lot better. Here at the end is where I started with some blueberry pierogies, and there was also one cottage cheese pierogi that I could see right away it was going to be a problem, and so I just totally wrapped it up, dough and all, into a new circle of dough. And when we ate them, I didn't notice that any of the pierogies seemed like they had a very thick layer of dough. They were all just delicious. In the past, I have also made a big batch of these, like a double or triple recipe, and then I just flash freeze them on a cookie sheet. And then the next morning, I would take the cookie sheets out of the freezer, put the pierogies all into a bag or a container, and then I have them ready to go for any time that we want to have sausage and pierogies. And then I can also pull out, only a dozen or so for those of us who like the cottage cheese pierogies, and then I can also do potato cheddar ones for those who don't. I also experimented here with rolling out some of the circles kind of oblong, and I can't say that that really made it any better or worse, but a larger circle was definitely a lot more helpful because the small circles just felt like I was hardly getting anything into them. They were all super tasty though. I used to deep fry my pierogies and then we would have them with sour cream and sausage, but I haven't deep fried them in a very long time. We don't deep fry a lot of foods anymore. If we do, it's just in a pot. We've actually been advertising our deep fryer for sale for the last couple years because we use it that rarely. My water is boiling and I'm just gonna pop a bunch of pierogies in here until it looks like I've got a full layer in there. I don't want to put too many in there and have them sticking together or not letting each other float. That is how I know to know when a pierogi is done, is when it comes off the bottom and floats to the top and continues to float there for a few minutes. So these pierogies took about 5 to 7 minutes per batch. I'm also just reheating some sausage from earlier in the week. We had sausage and pancakes for breakfast, and the kids will often then just eat pancakes. It's usually just me and Mark who want the sausage, and so we had quite a bit left over. And so I'm just warming it up in the frying pan. That way I can get some of that sausage flavoring for in my gravy afterwards. And the bowl that's on the oven is a bowl that can also go in the oven, or in this case I could turn my warming element on to keep the sausage warm in the bowl once it was done while I make the schmolfot. Now, pierogies are kind of similar to pasta. If I wouldn't put any cream or oil over them after they're cooked, they would stick together and then they would break open because of sticking together after cooking as well. So I've poured a little bit of cream into my bowl. It was plenty enough. I could have gotten away with a little bit less, but it was all very good. So now you can see around the edges there of my frying pan, there was some of that sausage fat that came up. The cream squished it all to the edges, and that's the flavor that we really like, a good sausage flavored schmolfot. That is just like the cat's meow. It's so yummy. So here again was another pierogi that broke open. They were quite moist sitting here on the cookie sheet. So I had to fix a few as batches were cooking. In the meantime, I'm just going to keep an eye on my cream and the pierogies here. Every once in a while I was turning them to make sure that both sides cooked evenly, and the cream, as it heated up, it would rise up as well in the frying pan, and I didn't want it going over, so every once in a while I just had to give it a whisk. Also, whenever I put a new batch of pierogies into the pot, I give them about a minute or so, and then I very, very gently scrape around the bottom or give them a slight stir just to make sure that as they hit the bottom right in the beginning that they're not cooking onto the bottom and breaking open because of that. So now after all the varenica had cooked, I very carefully strained the water out of the pot, threw my slotted spoon into the sink so that I could catch that last little bit of cottage cheese from the pierogies that had broken or spilt a little bit. I hope you have been motivated and encouraged by seeing that my things don't always turn out the way I want them to. I have mistakes and failures too, and I just want to be real with you guys. So thank you so much for watching, and I hope you've got another idea of what to put on your plate. Bye everyone!